Alright guys, so the first step of reloading is going to be decapping and resizing your once fired brass. Now, to properly understand the way that brass functions as it's being fired in your firearm is that when this is loaded in, your firing pin hits the primer, which ignites all of your powder. The pressure building inside of the cartridge flares your cartridge mouth, which seals against the inside of your chamber. That causes the pressure to build up and force the bullet out of the barrel. Um, that flared casing mouth will not feed through your gun as it stands. If you've ever tried to chamber a piece of fired brass, you've figured that out. Um, So what your decapping and resizing die does, in one step, it completes two actions. It will pop out the spent primer using the little decapping pin, which is right here, if you can see that. And then it resizes the casing mouth, or the case mouth, of your fired brass to the correct size, um, and, which you will later then flare to accept the bullet, but it's part of the step. So, to correctly set your sizing die, what you're going to do is inside of your die set, there's going to be a shell holder, like so. Using the Lee, this is all using Lee equipment, guys. So if you have something else, it might differ a little bit, but the process is essentially the same. So your shell holder will slide onto your RAM here. I orient the loading part of the shell holder kind of diagonal out so it's easy to get stuff in and out of here and you're not fussing with the lever and trying to get through here or anything. That's pretty common sense. Anyway, so then you will take your die and you will put it in here. And what you're going to do is you're going to run your RAM with your shell holder all the way up and screw the die in until it touches your shell holder. Let me break the camera off the tripod there and show you that up close. Switching focus. So you can see the shell holder and the die are touching. So then what you're going to do is you're going to tighten this locking ring down, which will hold the die in place. I'm going to put the camera back on the tripod to do that just because I need two hands. But you will screw this in and tighten it down, and that will hold the die in place at the same setting that you are going to use for the rest of this process. So let me get you back in focus there. Okay. All right. So tighten this locking nut down. Other way, Aaron. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. Just like so. Finger tight, because you may need to adjust this at some point. You're good to go. Okay, so now, pre-sorted once or slightly more than once fired brass. This is range brass, picked up off of my range. Most of this picked up today. If you see me reject one, it's because, like I said, I used to pick up 380 brass and I would just put it all in here and clean it at once. I clean it in a tumbler, which is another step that I forgot to show you, but I will paste that in somewhere. Anyway, so you take your brass and you slide it into here, just like so, and then you raise the ram. Just like that. That's done. You can see that it is now missing the primer. And the primer pocket is a little dirty. At this step, you would take your primer pocket cleaning tool and you would clean that primer pocket if you wanted to. I'm not going to, but you could now if you want. So, let me just do a couple more of these so you guys get the idea. So you'll slide this in and just force that down. You'll feel a little bit of resistance, but then it'll just pop that primer out and you'll be good to go. See, there's a 380 auto. There's another one. There we go. Ooh, okay, let me show you this. These casings, excuse me, the head stamp on these casings is WCC, and then there's that little circle with a cross through it. That means that this was a 9mm NATO round. Some of these are a little difficult to reprime. I found that if you use a chamfer tool here on it, it will just open up the primer pocket a tiny bit. It's a little bit better. Sometimes that's the tool if you couldn't see it. Sometimes I just don't bother, but this one I will decap. Just like that, not too bad. So, another 380. I thought I got most of these out of there. Guess not. They made a way to sort the different calibers out. That would be really awesome. So, this is a really simple step, and you'll just go through all your brass and you'll do this. The next few steps, the priming will do by itself, but then the flaring of the case mouth and the charging, the bullet seating, and the crimp, we will do in sequence with the turret here, which rotates. But for the time being, I'm just going to decap all of this, just in this one step. All right, guys. So we are ready to prime our brass. For all intents and purposes here, I'm going to do 50. This is 50 resized and decapped 9mm brassi. Normally in a batch of reloading, I probably wouldn't even use this holder, and I would do hundreds, maybe 200 rounds completely reloaded in one go. I find it really cathartic. It's a great way to spend an afternoon, as odd as that sounds. So what we need are this is a Lee Auto Prime XR. This is what it looks like. When you buy this, it comes with 2 trays. This is the small primer tray, it says on the bottom, and this is the large primer tray. We are using small pistol primers, so we will use the small primer tray. And the shell holders come in this. It's the Auto Prime shell holder. With other manufacturers for reloading supplies and stuff like that, their systems work a little bit different. But for Lee, you buy this, and you buy this, and you can do all of the popular calibers. I already have the 9mm, which is number 19 in here. All you do to load it is you would take it out of here, you push your primer tray down, and you slide your shell holder in. And what this is going to do is it's going to act and function the same way as the shell holder in our press, where we'll slide a shell in, and we operate the handle, which will prime our brass. So the next thing we need is some small pistol primers. This is CCI small pistol primers number 500. They come in a box of 1,000. 1,000 pistol primers will run you about $30, give or take a couple of bucks depending on where you buy it. There's a great reloading store here in Nashville that has these for $29.99. Large pistol primers are the same price. Rifles are more expensive. Magnum primers are more expensive, so on and so forth. So when you open this up, here's what you're going to see. You are going to see these stacks of cases. Now each one of these little boxes holds, let me get one out here, holds 100 primers. Let me close this up and set this up here. And the way that these boxes work is that when you slide this out, each row is going to be 10 primers. So we are doing 50 brass, so I'm going to expose 5 rows. Oh, and there are 10 of these little boxes in there, so there's 100 per each, so I'm going to use half of this box. I should have been ready before. But this pivots off. Be careful of these little tabs here. It's really easy to snap one off. I've already broken one of these. So it just pivots off and you're good to go. This, I'm trying really hard not to spill my primers here. What you do is you just set it on like that and you flip it up. And what that's going to do is that is going to set all of your primers on your tray. Now as you can see, well, let me see if you can see. Let me come around without spilling all of my primers. Alright, as you can see, there are 2 that are facing down. So what you're going to do is you're going to shake these from side to side. There are little bumps on the surface here, and there are little edges on the primers there, so that as they move and bump against each other, they should flip. You want to try and avoid touching these with your hands, but sometimes I just get frustrated. So there you go. 50 primers, all faced the correct way. Let me go sit down again. So then, what you do is you take your cover, you catch one of those ears on that side, and you pivot it on. Now, the one mistake I'll tell you that I made is that there's an area here that says no primers, this area. I had a primer there, and I pivoted that on, and it caused too much. It set up a little higher, and it put too much stress on this thing, and it snapped it off. So, don't do that. All right. So once you have this cover on, they don't have enough room to flip back upside down, so you can be a little, not a little rougher, but you can move this around a little bit more. All right. So then there's a channel that runs along here that your primers will go down. Let me get back up here in close focus to show you how this is working. So you can see this channel, and as you shake the primers, they will run down along in here. Now you can see, maybe you can see, as you work this handle, it's going to lift a primer up, and it will slide under the shell holder. So, just like that. So now that primer is ready to prime a casing. And you just want to be a little bit careful, because as you lift that up, that primer is just kind of sitting on that little thing, and it's really easy for it to flip off. And as you reload, you will accumulate spent primers on the ground, and it's really hard to find a good one. Plus, I don't know if you want to load with a primer that has been sitting on the ground. All right. So now what you do is you take your brass and you slide it into your shell holder and you operate the handle. You need to be a little bit careful here because a primer is an explosive, basically. It is a pressure-sensitive explosive. And you are pressing on the bottom where your firing pin hits. You don't want this pointed at you. There's a little metal part in each primer that's called the anchor. And there is a slight chance that you could detonate the primer on accident and shoot that anchor up at you. That's bad. I've never had one detonate yet, but I just be safe, treat it like a gun, don't point it at anything you don't want to destroy. So, you're going to work this handle now that your brass is in there. You will feel it touch, and so then you apply pressure, and you'll feel it click in. You feel it give and click in. And what that is going to give you is a primed, resized case. So let me go through a couple of more and show you, and then I'll cut the video, finish these 50, and we'll move on to the next step. So put your case in, operate the handle. Each time you operate the handle, it will bring another primer into the ready position there and to slide under the shell casing. So then you'll apply a little pressure, and you feel it give, and you're good to go. I kind of feel the top to make sure it's seated all the way in. I haven't had a lot of problems with them not seating very well, except in those NATO brass. It can be a little bit of a challenge, but this is another one of those steps that you just get into a rhythm with. It goes by pretty quick, especially when you're doing 50. When you're doing 100, it can go by a little slower. It also is surprisingly dependent on your hand strength. Your hands will get a little sore. So, see, that one's a little tight. So, all right. I think you guys get the idea.